The meeting is going live, Chairman.
Thank you, Stephen. Just apologies to people already in the chamber. Apologies that the team were just a few minutes late in the deliberations from the pre-meeting. Okay. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's meeting of the West Berkshire Licensing Subcommittee. Can I please doubly check that, is there anybody virtually attending? No, there isn't. Okay. So obviously, before we start proceedings, you probably noticed I've switched my phone off. So if I can just ask everyone to make sure they're on silent aircraft mode or switched off totally, it'd be appreciated. I'd like to confirm that this application we are hearing today is for the Kianda Club, 98 Royal Avenue, Calcutta, Reading, Berkshire, RG31 4UT. I am Councillor Phil Barnett, and I'm supported this morning by the subcommittee in Councillor Jane Langford, Councillor Nigel Foote to my left, and Owen Jeffrey, who technically is the reserve, but he is here to in the proceedings as well. Okay, thank you, Owen. The legal advisor for the subcommittee to my right is Beth Barco, and Ben Ryan to my left. He will maintain the record of the proceedings, and you've already heard Stephen Chard is the Zoom host sat to the rear. Please note that this meeting is being webcast and recording, therefore parties should be mindful of this in the terms of the information shared during this hearing. I will set out in order in which people will be asked to speak. If at any appropriate time anyone wishes to ask questions, please raise their hand. If we need to adjourn the meeting at any point, I will adjourn, and all parties will be advised of a revised time and date of the meeting. If we hear the evacuation alarm this morning, we must leave the meeting immediately and proceed via a safe emergency exit route. You probably noticed where it's got identified the exit routes, and then follow any instructions given to them by the officers. Now, the assembly point is the Dolphin Public House, and I suspect some people probably are not aware where the Dolphin Public House is. It's actually over the other side of the entrance to the main part of this building to the left, and the car park is at the rear. So that's where the official assembly point would be. Obviously, anyone requiring assistance will need to speak to the officers. But of course, if a lockdown alarm sounds, a separate alarm, we need to remain seated and await instructions from the officers. We will then obviously adjourn the meeting in such a time until it's safe to proceed. At that point, does any member or attendee have any questions for the chair at all? No? Okay. Now, can I confirm that the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Sandhu, are attending today in person? Yes, okay. And you're the agent, Bill Dunn. Pleased to meet you. Okay, thank you. And can I confirm the objector is attended in person? Okay, just.
May I, Mr. Chairman, for audibility, can people, when they speak, just put the button down so the red light comes on, and then everything you say is clearly audible? I'd be personally appreciative.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Jeffrey. I think it's quite important. Obviously, it would be from the point of view of anybody listening to the proceedings remotely, but also it's important because I expect you can hear that the air conditioning is quite loud at this point. Sometimes we don't hear what's being said the other side of the table. continuing on, I was just trying to ascertain whether Jackie Major, it's your good self. Okay, pleased to see you. And you're obviously representing Tyler's Parish Council. And also can confirm, and I can see him sat there, normally the other side of the table, not necessarily as a ward member, but a member of the panel. Welcome to you, Clive Taylor, from who's the ward member for this, where this ward, in this ward where the application is being considered. I now need to obviously explain to you all how the meeting is going to be conducted. Firstly, the licensing officer representing the council. Hello, Crystal. Crystal Kamola. She will be obviously introducing the application, after which all the calling parties will take place in the following order. The applicant, your good self, Bill Dunn, will be given the chance to proceed, and then representations obviously by Jackie Major. Also representations by Councillor Taylor, the ward member, and then the summing up by yourself, Bill Dunn. Okay. Remember, each group has 10 minutes into they're given the chance to present their case, and obviously one needs to recognise that the licensing Act's 4 objectives are the most important thing to address: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Ben Ryan to my left will be timing 10 minutes, and that he will actually notify you of 1 minute before the 10 minutes is due. And I think from the point of view of your representation, Jackie, is that obviously you've now got the full 10 minutes, when of course there was a possibility that your colleague was going to be joining via Zoom, and I gather he is now no longer going to be joining. So I don't know whether you've actually worked a 5-minute speech or whether you are going to take your full 10 minutes.
I won't be taking 10 minutes.
Okay. Right. Continuing on, once all representations have been made and all questions asked, I will close the meeting. After this, the members will meet privately to make a decision, and a written decision notice will be issued to interested parties setting out the verdict as soon as possible, but in any event within 5 working days of the hearing. Okay, everybody happy, and you've heard everything up to this point? Okay. I would just like to reiterate that I would take the opportunity to remind all parties present it is a public meeting, and the meeting is webcast and on YouTube. So it's therefore necessary to remind you as attendees again, you're in a public forum, and I ask participants to bear that in mind in terms of anything you've said during this hearing. Right, I now move on to declaration of interest. Has any of the members got any declarations of interest, please? No? Okay. I know, oh, sorry.
Phil,
right,
I
okay.
don't know whether it is appropriate, but could I just make clear that I am, as you've already mentioned, I'm here in my capacity as a ward councillor, but I think I ought to declare that I am also a Tilehurst parish councillor. And indeed, I am chairman of that parish council. And of course, the parish council is an objector to this application. I thought I should make that point clear.
Okay, I think I just asked for guidance from the legal officer, but I suspect your presentation is just an overview. Is that correct?
Yes.
As a ward member?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I did make it quite clear. It's obviously your opinion in relationship to you as a ward member, and not in the position of your representation on another council where the council is in effect an objector. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. This is a point of clarification, but.
Yes, it is. In terms of the objector, did he make a representation during the statutory consultation period as an independent councillor for the ward?
I don't think necessarily in the past it's been the case, unless the individual has made a comment as a resident, but not as a ward member.
Well, if I can answer that, I mean, I haven't. No, I mean, I haven't made an objection in my personal capacity. No.
So therefore, Chair, the councillor, if he hasn't made a representation, does not have the right to speak at this meeting.
No, he's made a representation that he wishes to speak as a ward member, not as a objector.
Sorry, Chair, is that in the bundle of documents for the representations?
I think in the past, it's been always the case that a ward member has the right to speak. And there is 2 ward members, and the other ward member, I don't think actually made it clear that she would come along. But I gather this particular ward member who's present did actually make it clear that he would come along and speak as the ward member.
Okay, thank you.
Is that clarified? Yeah. I mean, it is the procedure of these hearings that the ward member has the right, if he or she wishes to speak. And I think this case, the ward member has made it clear that he wishes to speak. So okay. Okay, right. At this particular point, I need to make the following statement, and that is, I'm led to believe that the applicant, via their agent, has emailed a skeleton argument outside of business hours at 11:26. That's 23:26 on Wednesday, the 6th of December, 2023. Meaning circulation would not have been able to take place until Thursday, 7th of December, only 4 working days prior to the hearing. This is after the deadline provided to submit material. Does the applicant wish to apply to introduce this material, please?
Yes, Chair. Forgive me for my oversight. For some reason, I had it in mind that the hearing today was Thursday, but in fact it's Wednesday. So an oversight on my part. I didn't fulfill the time limit, so we're short. So I'm asking for the committee to consider the skeleton argument. It will prove helpful, I think, in terms of understanding the case, the application today. But if you're not minded to accept it, then as part of my 10-minute presentation, I will go through it. But I believe it would greatly assist not only the committee, but also the objectors as well.
Okay, thanks for that information. At this point, I obviously do need to ask all parties to confirm whether they are happy for this material to be added. Can I go around the room firstly? Sorry? Okay, right. Members first. Okay. Okay, right. Jane.
I'm happy for this material to be considered.
Nigel.
Yeah, I'm happy, Chair.
I'm also happy, Chair.
Thank you very much. And from the chair, I'm also happy as well. Okay, so from the licensing department.
I'm happy for it to be included, Chair.
The objector
Yeah, we're happy.
and the
for it to
ward
be considered.
member.
Yes, I'm happy.
Right, okay. Well, we need now to obviously circulate to all the parties. And in this case, I'm going to propose from the chair a adjournment to have this information circulated for us to obviously consider members of the panel initially. And then obviously we will reconvene when everyone has had a chance to look. Should we say 10 minutes? 10 minutes, will that be enough?
Thank you, Chair. Most
Okay.
grateful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, everyone back ready? Okay, right. We now move on to Crystal Kamola, and perhaps you will be kind enough as the licensing officer to proceed with your introduction of the application.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Can everybody hear me? Brilliant. My name is Crystal Kamola. I'm the licensing officer with the Public Protection Partnership. I will now introduce the application. On the 20th of October 2023, the Licensing Authority received from Let's Eat Trading Limited a new premises licence application under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003. The application relates to a premises located at 98 Royal Avenue, Calcott, Reading, West Berkshire, RG314UT. The application has been recorded on the licensing database under reference 22976. The application was validated on the 23rd of October 2023 and the consultation ended on the 17th of November 2023. A copy of the application, including a location map and plan, is attached at Appendix 1 and 2. The application seeks to obtain the following licensable activities: late night refreshment, Monday to Sunday, 2,300 hours to 2,400 hours, both on and off the premises.
Sorry, can I just stop you? Sorry.
If Crystal could hold her microphone nearer to her face, I'm not hearing as well as I would like to. I know it's old age interfering, but sorry.
I think I think Jane's got a valid point, and I think it doesn't help the position where we are in this room with this air conditioning, unfortunately. So apologies about that, but please, if you can portray it a little bit louder, it'd be helpful. Yeah, thanks.
How is this volume? Is that better? Right, okay. So the application seeks to obtain the following licensable activities: late night refreshment, Monday to Sunday, 2,300 to 2,400 hours, both on and off the premises. Non-standard timings for New Year's Eve from 2,300 to 0100 hours on New Year's Day. Supply of alcohol, Monday to Sunday, 1,100 to 2,330 for consumption both on and off the premises. Non-standard timings on New Year's Eve from 2,300 to 0100 hours on New Year's Day. I confirm that the application was made in accordance with the Act. Responsible authorities, ward members and parish council were notified of the application by email on the 23rd of October 2023. The application was advertised in accordance with the regulations, with the required blue notices being placed on the premises and checked by an officer from the Public Protection Partnership, and an advert was placed in Reading today. The applicant has offered up a number of measures in support of the licensing objectives. These can be found at Appendix C and D. 10 representations were received in objection, 9 from members of the public and 1 from Tylehurst Parish Council. 6.2 of the report incorrectly states that they were all from members of the public. I apologise. One objector sent further information to be included with their objection, which can be found in the supplementary documents. The overall concerns noted in the reps were the overall concerns related to the potential for public nuisance, particularly noise, increased potential for crime and disorder, and that the granting of the licence would undermine the licensing objectives. 3 representations have been made in support of the application, stating that the business would be an asset to the community. As relevant representations were made, members must determine the application. Members must consider all representations, both written and oral, with due regard to the licensing objectives and decide whether the application for a premises licence should be granted or rejected. If members are minded to include any additional conditions other than those offered up by the applicant, they need to provide their reasons for doing so in the decision notice. Licensing authorities should only impose conditions which are necessary and proportionate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. In addition to this, it is stated that any condition attached to a licence should be enforceable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from members? Sorry? No, Sorry, unfortunately, don't forget you are not part of the three. Okay. Sorry, I should have said Jane and Nigel. Sorry, apologies.
I have no questions, Chair.
I have no question.
No questions from the chair, so you got off lightly. Okay, right. So no questions from the members of the panel. So I then move on. Firstly, just to ask around the table, up to this point, has everybody heard all the points and the presentation from the licensing officer? Okay. 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 You have, okay. I see nods. There's no yeses, but nods. And I think Jane made the point early on that it was quite important to make it quite clear in the presentation. So, and I think that reiterates that point. Okay. So we now need to ask the applicant and objectors if they've got any questions at all. None from
No questions, Chair.
From the
No questions.
Parish Council, no. Okay. So in this case, of course, there's nobody on Zoom. So I can then move on to thank you for your presentation, Crystal. I now move across to you, Bill Dunn, to give your presentation as the applicant's representative.
Indeed. Thank you, Chair. This is my application on behalf of Let's Eat Trading Limited. It's an application under Section 17 of the Licensing Act for the grant of a premises licence. The original application was somewhat of a vanilla ice cream application, reflects a pretty standard operating hours of a normal restaurant business. But it has attracted representations, objections, and we sought to mitigate that. So your licensing officer rightly outlined the details of the application, which includes the authorization for the sale of alcohol by retail and the provision of late night refreshment. You will see from the skeleton argument that we have communicated to the licensing authority to amend that, to remove the provision of late night refreshment in its entirety from the application. That means no hot food or drink can be served after 11 p.m. at night, save for the exception of the non-standard timings of Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, and to reduce the sale of alcohol to 2300 hours, 11 p.m. each day. Furthermore, my client has offered up two other fairly substantial conditions to be placed on the license should you be minded to grant it. First of all, that alcohol shall only be served to patrons ancillary with a substantial meal. So what that means is that you can't come in and just sit in the restaurant and have a pint of beer. You actually have to have a meal. And I think that's a defining condition to say this is a restaurant, not a pub. The second condition that they've offered up, and that's number 5 in your skeleton argument on page 1, that the restaurant shall provide table service only. So there's no coming up to the bar and ordering an extra drink at all. It has to be ordered via the waiter, waitress, and it is served at the table from the bar via the server. And then the last condition, that's item 6 on the skeleton argument, that the delivery service via the third-party aggregators, we mean Deliveroo, Just Eat and the like, shall cease at 22:30 hours. Any collections from the delivery drivers, the third-party aggregators, would be via the front door, which is a pretty thorough pair only. We have agreed conditions with the Environmental Protection Officer. They are as listed in your bundle and also in the skeleton argument. The application has attracted a number of representations against the grant of the license. And just to give you a feel, you have a map before you in the bundle. The market, the Coriander Club restaurant is located in a parade of shops. There are 3 shops there. One is Jay Guru's News Agents, off license. The middle shop is the Avenue Deli, which is a licensed premises. That is in fact owned by my clients, the applicants already, and they have been trading there successfully for the last 4 years without attracting any complaints. And then the third building to the right is the refurbishment of what is the Coriander Club. The general objections come under 3 reasons, really. Firstly, local residents are concerned about a lack of parking. That's not entirely true. There are 6 parking booths outside of the parade of shops. And if you refer to the map in the skeleton argument, the old Bath Road, there's a lot of off-street parking, sufficient for 30 or 40 cars, which is more than enough for the capacity of the restaurant. Then the next issue is a fear about crime and disorder in the area. We would maintain this is an application for the grant. That's reflected in the conditions, that the aforementioned conditions. There have been a mention of the old Murdoch's public house, and the objectors are absolutely correct. It was in its heyday, it was a fine restaurant. It became more than an area of antisocial behaviour and criminal activity. But that pub was closed down in excess of 10 years ago. It's been demolished and is now a block of flats. There is no way that you can compare the Coriander Club restaurant with the activities of an old style, broad-based local public house. So we would deny that somebody coming to eat in an Indian restaurant would actually be the source of crime and disorder in that area. Then the next one is the potential of noise. My clients wish to license the rear area to the premises. You would see the design of the pagoda to the rear of the premises. That is adjacent to a neighbouring residential property. But I would like to highlight that, albeit that the pagoda is built adjacent, there is a lean-to, then a garage, and then the residential property. The design of the pagoda has been such that there is adequate soundproofing to prevent any outbreak of noise. And we have agreed a condition with the Environmental Protection Officer that garden area shall be cleared of all patrons by 2200 hours each day. The road outside Royal Avenue is an incredibly busy thoroughfare, incredibly busy. It's actually a rat run between the A4 up to Tilehurst. I wasn't familiar with the area until my clients instructed me. I was astonished at how much traffic all through the night goes up this road. Immediately outside of the pagoda area on the bus stop, there is a bus stop immediately outside the pagoda area with the number 15 and the 15A, I think, services it till quite late at night. I think the last bus is around 2300 hours. So it does mean it's an incredibly busy thoroughfare. My clients, as I have said, own the Avenue Deli. And last year, for a period of nearly 12 months, they operated the deli restaurant to the full entirety of its license. So some of the customers were leaving about 11:30. And during that time, there has been no complaints. So there is clear demonstration that my clients can operate a business without undermining the 4 licensing objectives, should you be minded to grant the license. We have listened to the objectors. We feel that we put a number of mitigation procedures in place, not only what we volunteered, but also agreement with the Environmental Protection Officer. There is an element of competition with some of the objectors. We understand that at least 5 of the objectors are connected to the local newsagents. We would consider some of those objections as vexatious and should be dismissed, but equally we are aware that 3 of them do in fact live above the shop and are perfectly entitled as residents to make an objection. But we feel the mitigation we've put in place demonstrates that we can manage the business adequately. And we would ask the committee to look through those conditions and be satisfied that actually they will address any concerns that you might have. Chair, that is my submission.
Well, I think you've completed your presentation well under the 10 minutes. So thanks very much. Members, questions? Right, Jane.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to ask 2 questions, if I may. There are 3 outlets on this parade of shops. I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong here, all 3, once if we are minded to grant the license, will be selling alcohol. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. But I must share with you, currently the off-license shuts at 2000 hours and the Avenue Deli, albeit that they could trade late at night, actually closes late afternoon.
Thank you. So all 3 are open or selling, or of the 3, there will be alcohol sold, I believe, between 11 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock at night. Am I correct in that?
The off license, I think, is licensed from 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
I'm not sure what their terminal hour is. Maybe the licensing officer can advise you of that.
Thank you for that. My second question, it was a supplementary, that last one, I take it that by offering to sell alcohol, but only with a meal, is another attempt to reduce any noise or disruption of any kind. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It's a fairly standard, one shouldn't offer conditions from a pool of conditions, but we all do. It's a fairly standard condition to reflect that it is a restaurant serving alcohol principally ancillary to the purchase of a substantial meal. So if, for example, a customer came in and wanted a garlic bread, not that I think they serve a garlic bread, but if they were to order a garlic bread, that wouldn't be considered a substantial meal. They'd have to have a main course or something. Of course, I would draw the councillors' attention to the debate back in COVID times, is a Scotch egg a substantial meal or not? Well, it depends. And there's no legal definition of a substantial meal, but nonetheless, for any restaurant operator, the average spend per head is critical to the commercial success, not of a concern for the committee. But the fact is they wouldn't want somebody just sipping half a pint of beer and a bag of chips.
Thank you.
Okay, that's your, okay, thank you. Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. Dunn, could I just ask for a few points of clarification? With the skeleton application that we've just received, you say that the sale of alcohol, as you said, with a substantial meal, will be authorised until 11 p.m. That's correct? Yeah.
Yes, because we've amended the license to reflect those times.
I understand. Could I ask, what time is the restaurant actually physically going to close? In other words, what time will the doors be shut, all the patrons gone, and the premises, empty? Thanks.
Well, if you were to be minded to grant the license till 11, arguably the customers could be in there till around 11:30, allowing for 30 minutes drinking up time. In reality, outside of London or seaside resort, most customers are gone by 11. But nonetheless, the application is for alcohol to be 11, and best practice would dictate that you allow sufficient time, drinking up time, and that would be 11:30.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. From the chair, I've got a question. I mean, you obviously mentioned the pagoda on several occasions in your presentation. Is that totally isolated from the access of let's say, undesirables or anybody that's not associated with the restaurant?
Yes, Chair. We've given a lot of thought and taken the advice of an architect and the design and thought through how we're going to operate this. Patrons cannot access the rear area unless they go through the front entrance of the restaurant. Egress is via the front entrance as well. Save for an emergency. There is an emergency fire exit, of course, but customers cannot either enter or exit the garden area to the rear of the premises unless they go through the main door. So that then determines, of course, they will be met by a hostess in order to take them to a table.
Thank you very much. Okay, right now. The objectors and the ward member. Any questions to the applicant at all?
I have a question, if I may. I'm just trying to understand how the applicant envisages the use of the outside pagoda, because from everything I've read, it wasn't clear whether it was for drinking only or whether there would be tables and chairs outside for patrons to also have a meal outside.
With reference to the area, patrons using the rear area are restaurant customers. They will only be served alcohol if they're taking alcohol will only be served to restaurant customers. Covers is a crucial part of any restaurant. So it's intended that all patrons will be dining there.
Okay, Clive.
Yes, just a couple of questions. I'm looking at the plan of the premises here, and I can see what's described as the pagoda area. Is it also intended to have seating outside, immediately outside the front of the restaurant?
Yes, that's right. Yes, that is included in the plans. There's going to be around 12 seats to the front of the restaurant, commensurate with what's already in place with the Avenue Deli. So there'll be 12 covers at the front. There'll be something like 28 covers in the main building and around 28 covers to the rear. But in terms of the conditions that we volunteered, the rear area, which is the noise sensitive area, potentially will close at 2200 hours.
Okay, thank you. I have a second question. Would there be any restrictions on smoking in any of those, either the pagoda or those front areas?
Well, obviously, my client will conform to the smoking regulations. The pagoda is a covered area and soundproofed. So if patrons wish to smoke, they'd have to come out of that area and go to the front entrance, which is by the Avenue Deli.
Okay.
Okay, that completes your questions. Okay, well, thanks very much for your presentation and thanks for the answers you've given to the questions that have been put to you, Bill. Appreciate it. We now move on to Tyler's Parish Council. Jackie, your presentation.
Good morning, everybody. I do apologize. It's going to be a really quick presentation because I had expected one of our councillors to also be joining us today. So I'll just read through my script here. On behalf of Tylerhurst Parish Council.
Can you get a bit closer? Yeah, thank you.
On behalf of Tylerhurst Parish Council, I'm in attendance today to reiterate its objection to the granting of a new premises licence for the Coriander Club at 98 Royal Avenue, Calcutta. Whilst members of the council are supportive of the provision of a restaurant service, which we're very much sure will be used and enjoyed by our parishioners, a few concerns have been raised on this recent application. There is concern over parking in the area outside of the premises, along Royal Avenue and the side roads, which at times at present is already causing a public nuisance and obstructs the buses. With cars parked on the pavement, which is currently being experienced, parents with pushchairs are often having to walk into the road as their passage is blocked by, which presents a health and safety issue. For context, if you're not familiar with the area, the premises is located in close proximity to both a junior school and a family hub, which are also very well used. The plans show an outside seating area, and concern was raised that this could cause a noise nuisance to neighbouring properties. Obviously, we've heard the skeleton application and some further mitigating application conditions, but we still feel that there could be a noise nuisance. There could also be an additional issue resultant from the outside area where smoking may or may not be permitted, both to the rear and the front, as houses are so close by, and there's also a flat directly above the premises. On the 21st of November 2023, the council received a list of extra conditions proposed by the applicant, and these were discussed by members of the parish council. Having considered these conditions, it was felt that they did not fully address the concerns raised within our objection. If the licence were to be permitted and any relevant additional planning permissions required gained, we would ask that consideration is given to the inclusion of a condition restricting the hours of the outside area, as the resultant noise could have a detrimental impact on nearby residents. Obviously, now we do realise that there is a restriction from the outside area to the rear to 10 o'clock, but obviously I'm looking to my chairman of the parish council in that capacity to say, would we also ask for a reduced timing of 10 o'clock to the front, Clive?
It's not appropriate for you to ask the ward member at this point.
Okay.
I'm sorry about
I do
that.
apologise. So I would assume on behalf of the parish council that we would also ask for a reduced time of the outside area to the front being used as well.
Okay. Does that complete your presentation? Okay, right. Members, Jane, Nigel? Question.
Thank you, Chairman. Jackie, how many, my questions concern the objections with regard to people being outside, especially outside at the front and in the smoking area. Can you tell me how many people have objected to you about that? Because we haven't actually seen any objections to that.
I do believe there are some mentions in residents' objections in the pack, but I haven't got the numbers to hand, but the parish councillor who was supposed to be attending today had door knocked on local residents, and the noise and smoke pollution had been mentioned to him many times, but I'm afraid I can't directly answer your question because he has those figures, not me.
Thank you.
Okay, none. And I have none either. Ward member, any questions, objectors? No. Can I thank you for your presentation? I was going to say, sorry, I've missed the applicant. Sorry, apologies about that. Sorry. And I would see you were eagerly trying to ask a question. Sorry about that. Right, over to you, Bill. Sorry, have you got a question?
Thank you, Chair. am I correct in saying that in your representation that you would, from the parish council, that you would be happier if the premises had shut earlier? I'm just trying to find it on the screen. That you'd be happy if the applicant volunteered earlier closing period. I think you mentioned 11 o'clock.
I don't believe that we've mentioned a time at all. All we asked for was maybe if the license were to be granted, that there should be a restriction on the opening hours. And obviously subsequent information that we hadn't had previously does indicate that. But we have learned today that the outside area to the front of the premises still has a proposed opening time till 11, which could still be problematic for local residents.
Are you aware, as a local councillor, parish councillor, that the occupants above the Coriander Club and of the Avenue Deli are in fact staff members?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Is it correct that outside of the statutory consultation period as prescribed by the Licensing Act, fellow councillors surveyed the area to solicit views for this hearing?
I believe it was at the same time that I was submitting our objection.
Would you be surprised to know that we have evidence that actually it was outside this consultation period?
Yes, I would.
Okay. You mentioned that there is a local school. For the benefit of the councillors, can you identify on the map where that junior school is? What's the address of the school?
It is in Curtis Road, which is just a little bit further along from the entrance. As you follow Royal Avenue to the Bath Road, it's on the left-hand side, just after the bend.
So some considerable distance away from the proposed premises?
No, it's not a considerable distance. It's relatively close. And this area is used obviously by people walking the children to the school.
Yes, okay. Prior to, the Coriander Club has opened on the back of temporary event notices. Prior to that, were there cars parked on the streets in Royal Avenue?
Yes, and I believe I may have photographic evidence where we've had complaints previously, which I had raised with the West Berkshire Council licensing team.
Indeed. Would it surprise you that we too have photographs of cars parked and actually they belong to local residents?
I can't comment on that one, I'm afraid.
Were you aware that there was a car wash facility in the property next door to the Coriander Club?
No.
Were you aware that it operates every Saturday and Sunday?
Obviously, I pass the premises every single morning and every evening going to the office, which is very close to this premises as well. And I have myself witnessed, I'm very rarely there at the weekend, but I have witnessed the buses being blocked, which is, you know, the point that our residents raise and that has been raised through the parish council.
Yes. Would you accept the argument that actually they were residents' cars that were blocking the bus service?
Potentially.
Thank you. Chair, no further questions.
Thank you. I've just noticed that a fellow member actually did wish to speak, but of course it's outside the allotted time for members. I've just asked if it was the case that if you felt it was relevant, we could suspend standing orders, but otherwise you might wish to perhaps consider it another time.
No, Chair, I think it wouldn't be appropriate to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, I also had a question to ask, and I agree with my colleague. It wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. And I'll now look towards you, Clive, as the ward member to give your presentation.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Perhaps I could just start by saying that I am a fairly regular user of the Avenue Deli Cafe, and I have to say that it is an excellent cafe. The coffee's great and the food's great, and it has, I think, provided it's an important part of the community, I think, in that area. So I do recognise that, and I welcome the fact that that cafe's been so successful. Can I also say that this area generally has been subject to, over many years, antisocial behaviour, and references have been made to that already in relation to Murdoch's. The previous, I can see in the objections, references were made to an earlier restaurant. I recognise, that pub Murdoch's closed a long time ago. It is history, but it plays on people's minds. I've personally been I've only recently been elected as a councillor, but I have been canvassing in that area for probably about 30 years. I've knocked on many, many doors, including during this year, not specifically, I have to say, on this with regard to this particular application. Antisocial behaviour, I think, has declined in that area. In fact, I recall where the actual premises of the restaurant was for a period a police station, and I think that was put in order to deal with antisocial behaviour. But I think it plays on people's minds, and I think that is, when you look at the objections, I do have some sympathy, because they've lived in the area for a long time. They've seen the problems in the past, and I don't mean that in any detrimental ways of reflection on the owners. I mean, I think your example of the cafe is a good one, but I think the current restaurant proposal does introduce some issues which have been expressed in those objections, and indeed by the parish council in relation to parking. Can I say that I'm reluctant almost to admit this, but since it was a question that was raised, when I come to the cafe, it's very unusual that I can park in the 6 spaces. They're almost all, and I have to admit, I park in Royal Avenue, a bit beyond the cafe on the left-hand side. I live on the Birds Estate, which is about half a mile north of the, so I am someone from outside the area that does park there. And I'd be honest, I have returned to the car and found that a bus was struggling to get through because of another car that had parked on the other side of the road. And I think you've rightly expressed the fact it's a rat run. There's a lot of traffic there. Also, I appreciate your suggestions that future customers could park in the Old Bath Road, but the tendency, certainly when I go there, is you turn right into Royal Avenue, which is where the restaurant is. So it's actually quite difficult then to get back to if you're suddenly told, oh, you ought to park in the Old Bath Road, it's actually quite difficult to get back to the Old Bath Road. So therefore, the tendency is to park on Royal Avenue itself on some of the side streets. You mentioned 30, 40 cars parking potential there. That seems a lot to me. You may be right, but I mean, I would question whether you can actually park that many vehicles in the Old Bath Road. I agree, there is certainly some parking there. In relation to noise, I think really the concerns, I don't think I have any problem at all with the actual restaurant itself. I mean, you could certainly expect me there as a customer without any doubt at all. But I think the noise aspects, I think, have come up because of the pagoda area, and more recently, the realisation that there is seating outside. Now, I do recognise that concessions have been made, and I welcome those. That is a move in the right direction. I think all I would like to say is, really request that the panel today look, carefully at those concessions and really determine whether any further restrictions could be made. I'm concerned that there is, for example, there is music that's going to be played in the outside area. I haven't specifically asked this question. I'm guessing potentially up until, would it be 11 o'clock? I'm sorry if I've got the times the times are on. I would question music, certainly within the restaurant itself, no problem with that. I would question whether it's really appropriate in the outside areas or the pagoda area when you are so close to residential property. So I'm just checking. Yeah, I think though that really is so. Really, just to summarise, I'm not suggesting that this application is rejected. I welcome, I think it will be a valuable asset to the community, and I would wish you every success with that restaurant. I've certainly had good had good feedback from people that have visited the restaurant over the last few weeks. I think if I'd just like to mention talking to the public in general. I have casually spoken to people, residents living close by have concerns over the noise and the traffic. I think when you go further afield, I've got to be honest, I've had considerable number of people welcoming the restaurant. When you then ask what they think about the outside areas, perhaps they then understand those concerns. But obviously it's not going to affect me on the Birds estate, for example. But I do have to think about those people that live close by and the impact this could have when this is a facility that is open pretty well every day of the year. It's not like the Reading Festival on one, 2 or 3 nights of the year. And it is going to have, I think, some adverse impact on those residents. And I think that's all I would like to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Clive. Right, Jane, Nigel. Question.
Thank you, Chair.
No,
Are you okay? Clive.
Jane first.
Clive, I wonder if you've had any complaints about the alcohol-induced disruptions, let's say, from residents thus far, given especially the fact that this parade of shops is near a school, as we've just heard, and alcohol is sold from 8 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night.
No, I think you were asking there specifically about alcohol, your words, alcohol-induced.
Well, complaints, yes.
No, I haven't.
Thank you. Have you had complaints about traffic improperly parked, even if it's not yours, by parents dropping their children off to school?
Okay, but I wouldn't say I've had complaints specifically by parents dropping their children off to school. However, I canvassed that area extensively prior to the local elections, and the main issue coming up, particularly on residents in Royal Avenue and the roads immediately off Royal Avenue, concerned inconsiderate parking, traffic concerns. I'll be honest, reference was made to the fact, and I think there was a feeling, and this is perhaps credit to the Avenue Deli, it became so popular. And the reason I was parking there is because I was visiting the cafe predominantly. That did lead to traffic concerns. It was suggested to me perhaps there could be traffic restrictions put in place, double yellow lines perhaps in certain areas, but it's problematic because it's residential and some of those houses many of those houses in Royal Avenue do not have driveways.
Thank you.
But not school related, to be quite honest, no.
Thank you.
Completion, you finished. Okay, right, Nigel.
I've got no questions, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I've got no questions myself. So I'll then look across to you, Bill. Have you got any questions of the ward member?
Thank you, Chair. Would you accept that whilst you may challenge that there are 30 parking spaces in the Old Bath Road, there is in fact a significant number of parking spaces that would be available to customers?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would use the word significant, but I certainly accept that there are car parking spaces in the Old Bath Road.
Chair, sorry, one more question for the councillor. You would be familiar with the previous occupants of the deli, Salsilla restaurant.
Yes, I did. On a few occasions, I did use that restaurant. So yes, and yes, I do recall it.
Would you accept that the ownership of that particular restaurant caused problems? I think I've been informed by the licensing officer there were some issues relating to that premises.
I've never had any direct experience. I probably visited that restaurant in my lifetime, perhaps a dozen times or so. I never experienced any problems. I got to be honest, but I have heard over time that there were issues with that restaurant, certainly.
And since my clients have operated it as a deli, including in the evenings to the full extent of the premises license, have you had any complaints from local residents?
Only in relation to the impact it's had on parking.
Okay. Thank you. Chair, no further questions.
Good. Thank you, Bill. Right, Jackie, any questions of the ward member?
No.
Okay. Right, we now move on for me to obviously invite you as the applicant to address any comments you feel you need to at this subcommittee before we obviously conclude the proceedings.
Chair, would you not first give the opportunity to the objectors to give a summary?
We don't do. It's just him. It's just him.
Sorry.
It's just him.
It's yourself.
Thank you. Chair, this is an application for effectively a restaurant license. There is an outside drinking area that has attracted objections for the potential of crime and disorder and public nuisance in terms of noise. But the very fact that the objections have been received and the fact that there is an outside area has enabled my client to focus on exactly how they will operate the business in order to mitigate any potential noise problems. We have taken advice from an architect in terms of soundproofing of the outside pagoda area. We have highlighted today how the customers have to go in through the front door and egress through the front door. They can't just willy-nilly be out the back. And we have highlighted that we've offered up a whole raft of conditions, many of that were agreed with the Environmental Protection Officer, but also volunteered conditions to mitigate any potential noise. If you think of the introduction of the Licensing Act back in 2005 when it went live, the advice and the guidance from central government was one of a light touch. Don't put conditions on, let it see how it goes. If there's an issue, then there's a potential for taken to review. And certainly as a licensing specialist, I advocated such an approach. However, that said, here we are in 2023. I appreciate that a robust set of conditions helps provide guidance to any operators of licensed premises in how to manage their business. The conditions that we've agreed with the Environmental Protection Officer and the other conditions that we put forward are clear, unambiguous and enforceable. And we think that adherence to those conditions will mitigate any issues in relating to the 4 licensing objectives, particularly the prevention of public nuisance. There has been mention in some of the objections concern about potential crime and disorder. If we were running a nightclub or a late night bar, then I think that argument may well hold true. But this is a specialist Asian restaurant serving alcohol only to local customers. Whilst the shop or the restaurant has been in my client's ownership for a number of years, it's been empty. They've now spent extensively to refurbish the restaurant. There's a huge investment in. And experience has shown across the UK that where you have well-run premises with consideration to CCTV cameras outside and a vibrant economy, actually crime and disorder is reduced. Much better than having an empty shop with no business there. So in respect of two of the four licensing objectives, the prevention of crime and disorder, we say that actually having a business open and trading in a well-managed, well-organised, well-conditioned premises licence will be an issue in addition to the community. In respect of public nuisance, there are mitigation in terms of music, in terms of prevention of noise. The licence for an activity of entertainment is not on the application. But that said, councillors will be aware, of course, if a premises licence is granted to sell alcohol under the Live Music Act, my clients would be able to have live music. That's not the intention. It's a fairly small restaurant. It's background music. There will be speakers on the outside rear area. But on the advice and guidance from the Environment Protection, the number of speakers have doubled. And what that means is that we can still create a restaurant ambience, but the levels will be much lower per speaker. We've also considered the mountings for the speakers, so they'll be on rubber-type grommets in order to prevent vibration. We've also considered the direction of the speakers, which will be coming from the roof down rather than from the side, so there'll be less reverberation and so on. So my clients have really thought this through. The management team will actively disperse customers away from the area in order to prevent any noise nuisance. Yes, the location of the premises is close to one particular house, the next door neighbour, but as we said, before you get to his property, his house, there is a lean-to and then a large garage, and eventually you get to the house. We feel with the mitigation that we put in and clearing the garden by 10, that will stop any noise nuisance. And of course, if you consider what is a noise nuisance, well, it depends on the background noise. The higher the level of the background noise,
Sorry, it's okay. I was just asking a question in relationship to the timing. That was
okay.
Carry on.
So in relation to public nuisance in terms of noise, well, that depends on what the background ambience is. We have offered to close the garden at 2200 hours at the rear of the premises because that's a noise sensitive, potentially the noise sensitive area. Well, of course, the buses, the number 15 and all the buses run till much, much later than that. So the background noise is huge and that traffic really runs through till about midnight. And for those of you that are familiar with the area, it really is, as I said before, a rat run, huge amount of traffic that goes through it. In respect of parking, really, that's not a matter for the licensing committee to consider. But as operators, we have considered it. We are putting any advisory notes on in terms of social media. We'll recommend that people park away from the premises just around the corner. It's easy walking distance in the Old Bath Road. And there we have agreed conditions with Environmental Protection with posters asking patrons to leave the area quietly. And of course, I would just re-emphasize, this is a restaurant. This isn't a bar. It's not a pub. It's a restaurant where people come to dine, and it's not cheap. It's a fairly medium to upmarket price restaurant. We would ask you to grant the license with the conditions that we put forward and those conditions agreed with Environmental Protection. Chair, that is my submission.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for. I was hoping, of course, it would be a summing up and not a second speech, but I think you did clarify a few points, and that's why I allowed it to carry on, because obviously there isn't a timing on that, but it was appropriate that it referred to issues that you wanted to make sure that the committee considered.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Bill. So it's now up to me to obviously thank everyone around the table for their contributions. Members will now retire to consider the oral presentations that have been, as well as the written ones that's been given and laid out on in the agenda. And a written decision notice will be issued to the interested parties, setting out the verdict as soon as possible. But in any event, not more than 5 working days of this hearing. So can I thank you all for your contributions you've made today, and I formally obviously close the meeting, but please wait until the Zoom host is closed down the broadcast.